Welcome back to the podcast. Joining us today, we have Bethy. Did I say that correctly?
So my name is actually Beth. Bethy is just a nickname, but yeah, you can call me Beth.
Okay, Beth, the Vermont hiker, right?
Yep.
Awesome, awesome. And as always, we got to start with the disclaimer that we know we're not mental health professionals. We're just here to talk about mental health and the outdoors. And if there's a huge takeaway from this, is just to make sure that we keep the discussions going and basically keep the nuance going. And if you do feel like that you need help, we always encourage to make sure that you seek it. And yeah, so let's get started. So I ran across your profile on Instagram, and I saw that you had a lot of hiking pictures and everything, and a lot of hiking content, which I do love to hike. And I'm actually from California, so I used to hike a lot there before I moved to Texas, which kind of shot myself in the foot a little bit because it's a little bit more flat. But
Yeah.
yeah, so tell us more about like what got you started in hiking. What got you started. What made you want to do your Instagram profile and such like that.
So hiking, I quit smoking cigarettes like it'll be 2 years in August. So that was a huge thing for me. I was working in a restaurant and I was working like 50 plus hours a week, and I was like super, super depressed, and I was drinking all the time, and I just really like hated my life. So then we started going camping at like state parks and stuff. And then part of that is hiking and like hanging out at the lakes and kayaking and all that. And I just started feeling like a lot happier. So then like if you're a smoker and you're trying to hike, it's pretty much impossible. You know what I mean? Like, especially going up mountains and stuff, like, it was just not enjoyable. And I
Right.
mean, I wanted to see the views, but I couldn't breathe. So I quit smoking cigarettes. And then when I quit smoking cigarettes, I had to stay busy. So I just started hiking like all the time. Like, if I could
Mhm.
go hiking every day, I would. I started trail running, I started jogging, I started doing yoga all the time. And I quit my job. I quit my
Oh
job.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we kind of had like a little bit of a buffer saved up. This was before COVID. Um, so like I kind of just took some time to kind of like recoup, from working so much and being so
Mhm.
unhappy. Um, and I took like a few months, and then I started my own business, and I just clean houses now, which gives me a ton of free time to go
Mhm.
hiking, whether it's during the week or the weekends. You know what I mean? My schedule is so flexible, and like I don't think I've ever been this happy before. Like ever felt this like clear before. And a lot of it is just hiking. Just being outside, the fresh air, like the physical challenge. The planning, just getting to the hike sometimes, can
Mhm.
be a challenge.
Yeah.
Especially during winter, because some of the roads are like literally shut down. So you're just tacking on, an extra 4 miles to your 10-mile hike. You know what I mean? So just
Yeah.
a lot of things to think about. But yeah, so that's kind of like, I love every aspect of hiking. I like the planning, I like the hiking, I like the coming down. I like reviewing the pictures and the videos, everything, every part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like I was telling you before we started recording, like I used to hike quite a bit when I was in California, especially off the coast. It was fun just kind of like hiking down like the coast, like the little cliff area, and then seeing like the whales just splash up like pretty close to you. So it's pretty,
Yeah.
it's just fun being out in the outdoors, and you don't really think about a whole lot of stuff. Like I've gone into like a hike on a bad mood and then just leave out like really relaxed and really, and I don't even think about what I was angry about beforehand,
Yes.
so
Totally. Yeah,
I completely
totally.
forget. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's very fun. I'm really recently like, well, my problems with like mental health here in Texas was actually when COVID hit. I'm not a person that needs to stay home a lot, and I like to at least be outside
Hmm.
and have some kind of human interaction. So the fact that people were scared of like talking to each other, and then on top of that I was working from home, so not even now I didn't even have the drive to like really relax me a little bit. So it was a mess, and then it just so happened that I had a fishing rod at the time. Hadn't really done any freshwater fishing. I've done some saltwater before, but again, I'm out in North Texas, so it's not, the beach isn't that
Right.
close. And basically, I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna learn how to fish today, and that's how I started. And that's why like my Instagram's primarily fish, but I like all aspects of
Yeah,
outdoors. I recently got into
totally.
archery, and that's also
That's
just as
cool.
fun.
Yeah, yeah, archery. I tried that in high school, and I hurt myself pretty bad. But
Oh God.
yeah, that's a really cool sport. My sister was into it for a little while too. But
Yeah.
do you hunt or no?
Not yet. I've done some dove hunting, but
Oh,
that was, with the shotgun. So like,
yeah,
yeah,
cool.
not really with the bow. I want to get proficient enough so I can go bow hunt, but
That'd be really
that's.
cool. Yeah, I used to have an office mate that would do bow hunting, and
Mhm.
he was just really, really passionate about it. It was more than just like going to get meat. You know what I mean? It was
Mhm.
almost like a ritual to him. But
Yeah.
yeah, hunting's a pretty cool thing. My husband just started to get into it this year, and
Mhm.
just the idea of being able to like provide your own food. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
through like nature's avenue. You know what I mean? Like rather than going to the grocery store and eating a cow that had like a really crappy life, like you can go out and get meat enough to like survive like the whole winter. Like that's pretty decent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
But
there's a lot of benefits to it, not just the meat itself. Like it's underrated how many benefits, because people think like, oh, well, you're gonna go kill an animal, you're not respecting nature, but it's a little bit the opposite, because like,
I
especially like if
totally
you,
agree.
right, like if you're
It's the
stalking an
opposite. Totally.
animal, you see it like actually behave how it's supposed to behave in nature. So, and
Yes.
you actually,
Yes.
yeah,
It's like the
you
most
get to,
natural thing.
right, and you get to see like okay, Bambi's dad will kill you if it sees you, so it's not as like, friendly, cuddly like you see
Seriously.
in the Disney movies. So
Yeah,
yeah.
totally, totally. Yeah, hunting's a pretty cool thing. Like I said, my husband, he spent so much time like stalking, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like up on the mountaintops looking for bunny rabbits, you know what I mean? Just crazy, crazy stuff. And he'd be up there before the sun rises. He'd be out there for hours. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
talk about dedication. But it's also it's similar. I mean, it's hiking. You know what I mean? Like hunting is hiking, only you have a gun and you have a different intention. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Have,
he said the same thing. It's so like clarifying, you know what I mean? To be up on that mountain before the sun, you know what I mean? Like in your element, like doing what humans were meant to do. Um,
yeah.
it's healing, and it keeps us sane and it gives us something to do, something to like look forward to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely recommend people watch Meat Eater on Netflix, because you get more of a experience as to, I mean, it's probably the closest thing you can get of, in terms of like the hunting experience without actually going hunting, so you can kind of, so people can understand it better. Like Steve Rinella, like I follow that guy all the time, and he's like the one that, I don't know if he produces the show, but he hosts it. And yeah, like you learn a lot. And like I even talk to hunters all the time, and it's like it. And my perception of hunting has definitely changed, because like I said, like, you know, after talking to hunters and even seeing like different shows like that, like we actually see how like you have to stalk an animal sometimes for days and you don't even get anything back. But then you
Mm-hmm.
really are out in the nature, and like you said, like there's a lot of hiking involved. Like you have to hike 12 miles into public land, or 20 miles into public land, just to be able to see an animal, because it's not like you're going to park up next to a trail and then the animal's just going to appear and you just go
Yeah.
and that's it. Or
Yeah, they don't usually hang out on the trails, usually. They might
yeah, they
pass
don't.
by, but yeah, they get it.
The whole point is they don't get shot or hit with an
Yeah,
arrow. So it's not
yeah,
like
they
they're going to
get
just
it.
be like, hey, bullseye. No, so it's like,
Right? Hmm. But yeah, totally. It's a cool thing. I don't know. And like I said, just being outside, especially during COVID, because everything changed,
mhm,
like we used to be bar flies, and then even like after I quit smoking and kind of like really reduced my drinking, we still like really like to go out to dinner. You know what I mean?
mhm,
That was like a huge social aspect of our lives. So
yeah,
like when everything shut down, like we kind of stopped hanging out with those people, So then we started hiking. So then you look for people with the same interest, So then we started hanging out with hikers. And then
yeah,
I don't know. And that's actually so we joined my husband and I joined the Green Mountain Club, and they take care of the Long Trail in the state of Vermont. It's just volunteers, and I mean
mhm,
there's some staff, but so we joined that in hopes of finding more hiker friends, and then COVID happened. So we
mm,
ended up like not we went to like two volunteer events, but we didn't really, it's not like you're rubbing elbows with them because it was COVID, so it's like bummer. Bummer.
yeah,
But it
yeah,
is we adopted part of the trail and we get to take care of it, and that's fun. We
okay,
have to we get to go out and like clear gutters and chop out down trees and stuff like that, as long as it's safe, obviously. um but yeah, so that's been a big huge driving part of hiking too, is joining the Green Mountain Club and taking care of the Long Trail, and like we're making plans for the summer to do like section hiking the Long Trail, you know what I mean? Just
mm,
like I said, it's something to look forward to.
Yeah. Yeah. So how long have you been hiking then? More or less, like this. It sounds like maybe like the last 2 years, or maybe somewhere around there.
Dedicated, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
when Ross and I got together, we got married about 15 years ago, and we were really into hiking when we first got together. I think because that's what like kids did, you know what I mean?
Mm.
But then we started like working, and then you start pursuing like the American dream of having a fancy car and a big house and all that stuff, and then you wake up one morning and you're like, well, shit, I guess I don't really want all this stuff. So
Yeah.
then we started hiking again, So yeah, I would say for the past 2 years we've been pretty dedicated to hiking. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
How
good. I
about
mean,
you?
hiking. So let's see. Hiking. Probably I started my first hike was probably 9 years ago. I think 9 years ago.
Yeah.
I was with a friend that I met through college, and she's still hiking a lot and everything. So she just invited me. She invited me to multiple hikes before I actually follow through with one. But yeah, that's kind of where I started, and then maybe shortly after that, like I was basically I'm thinking back in like 2014 is when I first started getting like into like firearms, like specifically for hunting, and then started getting into like fishing, like the saltwater fishing, and that was pretty fun. But it wasn't until like COVID happened where I started getting into freshwater fishing, and then I started meeting a bunch of other fishermen, and it was pretty cool because like it was kind of weird at the first because it's just like, oh, are you like just as scared as COVID as other people? Like I don't know, like we're kind of like
Yeah.
trying to feel each other out, like make sure like we were on the same page, which it's not that anything bad with that, but it's just like everybody wants to take it differently, and that's perfectly fine. uh
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean that's pretty much what led me to the podcast, which was kind of like what I tell people all the time. Like I got tired, like it was already bad enough like that mental health wasn't really discussed a lot before COVID, and then it just the decline was just it just shot down like really bad like once COVID hit, and it was just something that wasn't really talked about a whole lot. Like your story that you shared with the experience that you just shared with us, like you basically took control of your life. You quit smoking and then you started hiking, you started your own business. That's the kind of stuff that needs to be talked about more. Like it happens more than people think, but people sometimes probably might think that it doesn't happen a lot because they don't hear it a lot.
That's
you know
true.
we
Yeah,
have the
totally.
we have the media that kind of likes to sell conflict, and then that spills into social media, which a lot of people are entrenched in, and especially the younger generations, because that's what really keeps all those platforms going, just the younger people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. COVID's been crazy. I hear you with the mental health too. Like there's just such a big change, like and like a lot of people lost their jobs,
hmm
like my husband, he lost his, and that was a hard hit, it and it's not even necessary, like I'm not even talking about like financially, but like when you go from being needed, and having a like set schedule and something that drives your life to absolutely nothing
hmm
overnight. He didn't even like know what to do with himself. You know what I mean? He's like, I have like he's in his adulthood. I don't think he'd ever had that much free time. You
hmm
know, so again, let's go outside. And a lot of
yeah.
times too, it's hard to get yourself motivated to even like get out there and start hiking. But as soon as you're out there, and you see the views or your blood is pumping or the wind blows, then you're like, okay, like I feel better. And then it's just funny too, because a lot of times I gotta like twist his arm to get him to go out, and then we'll get to the top and he'll be like, oh man, I'm so glad I came out here, and I'll be like, I knew you would be. I knew you would be. But
That's how it always starts. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, sometimes like I said, it's and during winter it can be a bit of a bear to get motivated. Just because so like my first winter hike this year, I went with a good friend of mine, and she's like super fit. Like I would say
mm
she's probably more fit than I am. She's like more dedicated to like a healthy diet. And so it was rated as moderate. And I think it was like 6.5, maybe 7 miles. And I was like, we'll be done with this in 4 hours tops, no big deal. And we got back to the car and it was like 6 hours. It was like a crazy, crazy hard hike because there was like, so at the base of the mountain, there was mud, and then at
mm.
the top of the mountain, I'd have to say there was probably like almost 3 feet of snow. You know what I mean? So like
Oh wow.
it was a decent elevation gain, over 1,500 feet. So I mean that can be difficult in and of itself. but then you add in the snow and it's like walking in sand. You know what I mean? It like sucks your feet in. Every step that you take, you like sink down, you got to go up again, you know, and like you dress because it's cold, but then you have so many layers on and you're working so hard that you just end up taking all your layers off, and then, you know, you're carrying all this stuff up the mountain. It's just, oh my God, it was hard. Like it was like shockingly hard. And like I got back, and that was like the first hike in a long time. I'd say at least 6 months. My legs hurt. Like I was in pain. Like I had to like take the next day off to actually recover.
Oh
But
God, yeah.
yeah, like it's just a challenge. And then, like I said, sometimes like the roads in the state parks in Vermont, they close during winter. So getting to anything, like I said, you're tacking on extra miles sometimes, maybe not miles, but at least a mile sometimes. Like it's just something to think about, you know, time constraints and everything.
Yeah, I got a little bit of a taste of what it's like to, you know, walk basically in like 5 feet of sand. Just because like when, you know, when there was the recent winter storm here in Texas, once I went out to go run, I just felt my feet sinking in a little bit every single time I would run. And it was just one of those things where like, oh my God, like 2 miles seems pretty intense right now. And it's like not even because of the, you know, the wind. I think the wind chill was at -1 and the overall temperature was at 7. Yeah. And I mean, the funny thing though is I enjoyed that run. It's probably my most favorite run ever, just because like all that cold hitting me kind of like boosted my adrenaline, and I was just running, and I was like, okay, am I gonna slip on this? Like, you know, kind of like it was like a little bit of a challenge, right?
Yeah,
And
totally.
but when I stopped running and I was just kind of like playing around in the snow and all this stuff, all of a sudden, like, you know, the sweat just freezes, and that was not pleasant at all. So I went running right back, changed, and then went back on the snow.
Totally, I hear you. Yeah, I've been on a few hikes where like the front of my head, you know, from sweating was just like ice. You know, it was like a patch of ice, or like having like, you know, a mask on your face because it's so cold. By the end of it, it's just like a little sheet of ice because there's so much condensation. You know, it's just crazy. And then, like you said, wind chill, factoring in a wind chill, like, oh my God, especially on some of these peaks, that's brutal. You know, like I was in Stratton the other day. That's not even really that high up, and it was insane. It was like 70 degrees and the wind was just howling. You know, I was like, I like it like hurt. It was so cold, you know. But again, it's one of those things you gotta like factor into your winter hike, you know. And besides that, like your shoes, like you don't just wear like a pair of like regular kicks up the mountain in the winter, you know. Like you gotta have cleats or snowshoes, you know. You gotta have like robust, really warm shoes. It's just crazy things that I wouldn't have even thought of until obviously you get into it and you're like, oh wow, yeah, it's winter. I'm gonna freeze up there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of like what I was trying to like have you on here for, because, you know, like I started following your content right around winter, so most of the stuff that I've seen you post has, you know, has been covered in snow. So what do you recommend actually, like if you are in like a snow area? Like for me personally, like if I had to choose to go somewhere like to live, I'd probably choose Flagstaff, Arizona, just because I think the amount of seasons there is pretty, you know, legit, and, you know, there's a lot of snow. But what do you recommend, like, people taking besides, you know, we already talked about like the hikes or something with like a lot of traction, but I mean the hikes, the cleats, or something with a lot of traction. But what else do you recommend? Like, how do you prepare for a hike? And obviously, I'm assuming that you know that you would need a 4x4 to at least get to some kind of like point where you can start your trail, right? So
we have a Subaru Impreza. It's like the lowest riding Subaru you could possibly get. But it does really well. We have like studded snows, and, you know, you just go tooling around on the back roads. It's not a problem. But when it comes to like hiking gear, I always say, like, first of all, if you're gonna hike somewhere, you should do it with somebody, or you should be really comfortable with that hike, because winter, it like, I swear, it like more than doubles the effort of your hike, you know. And so the other thing that I always recommend is look up your trails and look at the reviews, you know, because a lot of times somebody will be like, oh, you know, there's like a ton of trees down, you know, like it might not even be worth going, or it might add a lot of time onto your hike, whatever. So I always say, like, look at some of the reviews and like kind of cross-reference, look at multiple sites, you know what I mean? Like make sure you know what you're getting into. And if you're hiking by yourself, make sure that you let somebody know where you're going and that you check in on a regular basis. But as for equipment, I always wear leggings, some pretty decent socks. I like Darn Tough, Vermont Darn Tough socks are my favorite. And then I have it's a lightweight like hiking kind of snow pants. It's not even like it's water resistant. It's not waterproof. You know what I mean? But light snow pants, something that's movable. And then I like to wear a wicking shirt, a zip up, and then I bring a coat. And then I always bring a hat and a scarf and gloves, you know?
Mhm.
I wear Salomon hiking boots that my husband got me for Christmas. They have like this much tread on them. You know, like these things are super robust. Yeah, like I
Oh
mean,
wow.
yeah, I could probably like break a watermelon if I kicked it. You know what I mean? Like these things are pretty intense. But they're, you know, they lace up really tight. They have like the big thick tread on them. I always wear yak tracks when I go up mountains too, or snowshoes. I
Mm.
actually kind of hate snowshoes because it's like twice the effort on top of twice the effort. You know, you're walking like a duck. It's just insane. It takes so much effort, especially if you're going up a mountain with snowshoes. It's like just so much effort. I really don't like snowshoes, so that's why I stick to the micro spikes. And they haven't failed me yet. You can literally like walk right on the ice. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy.
Micro
Um,
spikes?
yep, micro spikes. Yeah, I use Yak Trax micro spikes. I wouldn't necessarily recommend them because we've actually had a lot of trouble with them this year.
Hmm.
Whether it's like the plastic breaking or not being like fitting correctly, you know, just but yeah, I like the micro spikes. You can just strap them right onto your boot and take them off if you don't need them. But
Okay.
yeah, and then a pole. I would bring a pole. It's good to have a pole when you're hiking in winter.
Mm.
Not necessarily to lean on, but like if you're going to a peak, you should always kind of like test the edge before you step on it. You know what I mean? Because it might be a false ledge and you might fall down the mountain and die. Um, you
Yeah,
know,
we don't
so
want that.
so that's something to think about. But I mean, like for example, I was hiking up Haystack, I think last week by myself, and there was a girl coming down the trail, and I was going up, so she stepped off to the side, and she sunk in up to her like her waist. You know what I mean? Because that's
Mm.
how, yeah, right. And I'm like, hey, do you want me to help you like get out of that hole? You know? And she's like, no, I got it. But so something to think about when you're solo hiking, like if you got to take a pee, like, and you want to step off trail, that's a lot of work. You know what I mean? Because
Dang.
you're gonna stink like 3, 4 feet in. It's like something to
Yeah.
think about. But
Yeah.
yeah. So I always say bring a pole just in case.
It's kind of
You
like
never
ice
know.
fishing. Kind of like ice fishing. You need to bring a pole, like, and you check the ice, like as you're walking to like a spot, because
Yeah,
it might be 4 inches where you're walking currently, but in the next, like, I don't know, 2 feet is actually like 1 inch, and then you just sink in.
yeah,
And
yeah.
a
You got
lot
to
of people,
test it. You got to test it first.
yeah, and a lot of people actually, like, I've heard of stories about in Michigan where there's been a good amount of people that have like lost their lives, like, because of that. Like, they're a little careless when they're walking on the ice, and or
Yep,
they get too antsy and they get on the ice too early before complete freezes a point where it's safe. So
totally.
I've heard stories, yeah. So that's kind of why, like, it's just like, I mean, me, like, as a winter person, I'm not necessarily adapt yet. I was fortunate enough to come to the realization that, I mean, even though it was only like 3 or 4 days, like, of snow, that I can survive in something like that. But anything worse, I don't know.
Yeah,
Um, I know for me, like, I was lucky that I had power. I know a lot of Texans didn't, and that was very unfortunate. But I experienced like a minor blackout, and then that was it. I didn't experience anything
yeah.
else. But they shut down my water because the people downstairs from my apartment, their pipes bursted because they froze and everything. So I was
Yeah.
without water for like 4 days, and
Oh
at
my
first I was like,
gosh.
all right, this is cool. And then eventually I was like, okay, time to start boiling snow. And then I even went across to the community pool to just get like the water just so I can flush the toilet.
Yeah,
And
yeah. That's crazy.
yeah, and like the good thing is that people offered me help, that in like I think one of my buddies, like, he had everything, he didn't lose anything, so, and he had a 4x4 truck, so he's like, if you need me to pick you up, I'll pick you up. But I was kind of more of like, all right, I want to see if I can survive this first, like, that's kind of
Yeah,
like
tough
what
it out, right?
yeah, because like I've never been in this situation, so it's kind of like I want to see if I can survive, because I mean, I want to know what my limits are. And I was
Totally.
fine up until the whole thing with like getting the water out of the pool, because so I do smoke a lot of meat. I have a smoker here, and I keep my pellets in the 5 gallon, like, just typical warehouse, like, buckets and stuff. So I had one that was empty, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna go get the water because the snow. I'm like, it's too much effort for very little water that I'm getting, like for each
Oh, I
bucket that I
know.
had. Yeah, so I was just like, okay, I need to go to the pool, and I got the bucket, I filled it up, and then as I was walking over here, because some of the snow was already melted because people were walking on it and all that stuff, and the sun was still coming out, and I'm like holding the bucket, and I was like slipping all over the place. I'm just like, oh, this is
Yeah.
not gonna be feasible, like doing this multiple times. And at that point, I was like, well, supposedly they're gonna get the water running like within the next day. I call my buddy up. I'm like, hey, can you pick me up so I can at least take a shower at your place? And yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't consider that like for me like quitting yet because I mean I lasted 3 days, but it was nice to have a shower. It's like why you're gonna suffer if somebody's offering you their shower, you know?
Totally. Totally. Yeah, that's rough too. I mean, it's one thing to, go out in the woods and do that, when you like intentionally go camping, but to like be in your comfort zone, your home, your safety, and to not have like those basic necessities that we're used to having. I can't really
Mm-hmm.
imagine that. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, and that's kind of one thing that I do encourage people that I talk to. It's like let's go camping, and not necessarily like what they say glamping, like you have a restroom available, like just let's actually go. I mean, I've only done that once, but it's a very humbling experience because I think I mean it's in a lot of situations I feel like part of mental health is how prepared you can be or how easily adaptable you can be because
Absolutely.
that just basically allows you to tackle any challenge that comes your way like when you're out of power, out of light. I mean, granted that if you're depending on the refrigerator to like keep certain medications cold, that's a different
Hmm.
thing. But for the most part, like just hey, like okay, I don't have Netflix anymore. Like I'm so bored. It's like, dude, like no, you're not. Like people in the '90s, '80s, '70s didn't have all that, and like they were fine. So it's like we kind of do we need reconnect a little bit to the outdoors in some shape or form. Even just going outside, to be honest, like just doing something, right? So that's why
Just,
I
I mean,
do.
just sitting outside, yeah, just letting the sun beat down on your skin, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Watching a cloud go by can be healing. You know what I mean? Like super, super healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to camping, I don't know. It's funny. I remember like when we first started camping, I was worried because like who doesn't watch TV at nighttime before they go to bed, right?
Right.
So I was like worried, like, will I be able to fall asleep, especially in the woods without like any lights or any noises or whatever. But honestly, like we would do so many hikes that by the time it was bedtime, like I couldn't even keep my eyes open. You know what I mean? I was so tired that I had no trouble falling asleep. And it's like by the second night that we're in the woods, I usually get really, really good sleep because I'm so tired from not getting great sleep the night before and
Mhm.
hiking probably 2 days in a row that it's just amazing. It's like it almost like resets my body, you know what I mean? And then the sun is up super, super early, so I'm up early, you know what I mean? It's just I just like I cannot wait to go camping. I'm like really looking forward to it.
Yeah, like I've like maybe not so much in the summer. Well, depending on what time of day during the summer, but even in the fall, like when I started fishing, like there's been days where I'm like I'll cast out a few times and then I'll just kind of like lay down and just lay down on the grass for a little while, like and just
Yeah.
lay there, with my eyes closed and just kind of like if it feels really really good. Like I was just like, why isn't this like talked about more? Like it feels good. Like honestly, like it feels good just to get out and then right around that time, my job was getting stressful too. So it was perfect that I ended up doing that, and I ended up discovering how much I really do enjoy this, like to the point where it's like I mean, I'm kind of exaggerating because, like you said, like who doesn't watch TV when they're going to sleep? But to the point where it's like I don't really need a whole lot of television. I don't really need a whole lot of video games anymore. Like it's like I just want to go out and fish, and then or go out to the gym and go out somewhere, like do some exercise, like they're starting to open
Totally.
things up here in Texas, so we're able to actually start like doing outdoor sports. Um,
Mhm.
and that like I think the first thing I did was kickball in the summer last year. Like they opened up kickball. They did their best to have precautions, but I'll be honest with you, a lot of people didn't really care. Like almost every single person playing there was there without a mask. They didn't care. I think they
Yeah.
were just really happy to be back out and get some little bit of form of normality back.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, and like it was just I mean, that was fun, and it wasn't really so much about like winning at that point. It was just like, dude, I just want to get out there because it's
Yeah,
it's being around other people, just joking about stuff, and like I
totally.
definitely
I
lost
hear
my competitive side like during
you.
COVID because like it's like I used to be very competitive because I grew up playing sports like basketball, soccer, football, and everything, and then
Yeah,
like then all of a sudden COVID is like, yeah, that's the least of my priorities right now. My priority is just to make sure my
seriously.
mental health is like on point.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
So,
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I do also I do a lot of like meditation too. You know what I
okay.
mean? Like guided meditation, like I mean a ton, like a ton. Like I spent I think like 40 minutes this morning meditating, just different guided meditations on YouTube. It's almost like for me, it's like preventative maintenance. You know what I mean? Um,
Mhm.
like wake up and do like a gratitude meditation, like be grateful for the things that you have, like stop trying to get more stuff and just be grateful for what you do have, you know.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a big thing with hiking too, is in my mind is like it's free, you know what I mean? Even if I have to spend $8 to get into a state park, you know what I mean, I'm not polluting the environment. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it's the nicest thing I can do for the environment while still like producing endorphins and making myself happy, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like a thing that I can be grateful for and not have to like bust my butt to get money to have it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so many people I think work for a nice big car or a fancy house or all these things that are really really temporary.
Hmm.
And they get so stressed out and it leads to like not only mental health issues but like chronic physical health disorders and disease.
Hmm.
And it just makes your life miserable. It's just like
Yeah.
so miserable. I have friends that just work all the time, and like their whole entire life is just based on their job, and their job is to like make millions for somebody else. You know what I mean? Like it's not like you're putting that money in your pocket, and then you're so stressed on top of it that like you're exhausted by the time the weekend gets around. Like, what are you doing? You
Yeah.
know? Like, why? Why are you doing that? And it's like, well, I really want this car. But what's that car going to bring you? Like a faster
Yeah.
ride to your job? you know? Because that doesn't sound like fun to me.
Well,
Um,
if you're a young dude, it's at least I was guilty of that when I was in my late teens and early 20s. Like, if you want a nice car, you want to be able to like impress the ladies, right? So
totally.
it's
Totally.
stuff like that where it's like now I just really don't care. I wish I would have bought a truck instead, like because the truck's
I
more
know,
useful.
dude. Oh my God, I can't tell you how many times we have wished that we bought a truck instead of a Subaru. I mean, I love our Subaru and it like has served us well, but like a truck would have made so many things so much easier, you know?
Hmm.
But uh but yeah, I don't know. I guess I just think that I don't know. I found for me the pursuit of money just sucked. I'm not good at
Yeah.
making money, you know what I mean? But I'm good at hiking. I'm really good at
Mm.
hiking. I'm good at taking pictures and people like it. You know what I mean? So like why wouldn't I be doing that? Why wouldn't I find a lifestyle that can accommodate that? So being self-employed does that, and I don't know. I don't really like working, I guess. Like my job is easy and I have like a handful of clients that are really, really nice and they take really good care of me. Um,
Mm.
it's almost like a friendship, honestly, with some of them. But yeah, I don't know. I guess when it comes to mental health and hiking, it's better than medication, and it's
Yeah.
cheaper.
In a lot of instances, it definitely is. So you brought up two good points in the last like 4 minutes. The first one, which is what I was going to ask you, like, do you see the outdoors as a form of meditation? Which, I mean, I would assume. I mean, just by the conversation we're having, like, yeah, you would agree that that's the
Yeah,
case. And like, what do you recommend for people that first want to get into that? Because like, so like I guess the more, I don't know if you would say, I don't know if proper is the right word, but like, because I don't necessarily believe that for the most part there's a proper way of doing things, because if you stick so rigid to something, there's no room for innovation, right? So
mm,
I don't necessarily believe that's that to be the case. Like I don't like using the word proper a lot for that reason. But
totally.
like people that think meditation, they think like just sitting down, cross with their legs crossed, kind of like going like, like that or whatever. And, or they think of yoga, but outdoors is not really thought of as like, oh, that's a meditation. So, or even cooking. Like I like to cook and I think that's my form of meditation.
I do
But
too.
yeah, like just, that's, for me, it just mellowed me out completely. Like anything, I could be having the worst day ever, and it's like, oh, well, I get to play around with these spices. Cool. So, but yeah, but like I was saying, so for somebody that is about to get into the outdoors, and what do you recommend in terms of advice? Because people might think, well, I'm not getting anything out of it, but I don't know. Do you see any like barriers like that might keep them from enjoying the outdoors in the form of a meditation?
I think a lot of people, like whether they would admit it or not, like the outdoors is scary. You know what I mean? Like especially like if I solo hike, like I feel really, really small when I'm out in those woods on that mountain, and it's really, really humbling. But I think a lot of people are kind of intimidated by the idea of like going out in the woods. You know what I mean? Like it's new and you don't want to look like you're out of shape. You know what I mean? So I feel like there's kind of like this pressure that like you're going to be judged or something. You're not. But I'd say go to a state park. You know what I mean? State parks are super well labeled. There's always a ton of people there. There's usually a park ranger in case something bad does happen. But go somewhere, that's close and nearby, kind of put your toes in the water, go out into the woods. I mean, luckily, in Vermont, like where I am, there's like so many trails. It's just insane. I mean, there's easy ones, medium, hard. There's mountains, there's lakes, there's waterfalls, there's caves. You know what I mean? There's just so much. But we also have like easy ones. Like we have one that's a mile around. It's literally like a mile, and it's like no elevation gain, and so like if you were in Vermont, I would recommend something like that. It's super popular. So if something did happen to you or you felt like you got lost, like there's so many people there, you'd be totally safe, But yeah, you just gotta get out there, and just have to have an open mind.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very, very sound advice. The next point that I wanted to bring up from earlier was because you did mention like that you're busy working your butt off, working to make somebody else rich. I think that's a very, very good point because again, I'm generalizing, but we oftentimes like we work for something because we have a short-term goal, maybe a materialistic goal, and we lose sight as to for what do we want that for, right? Like, is there anything better? Am I doing this the right way or whatever? And yeah, like we get caught up in that, and it's like it's to use a cliche term, the rat race, right? We get caught in that. So
Totally.
yeah, and I do believe that making money is important, but the way you get there is the most important thing, not you getting there, because like if you're like for example like you're working for yourself, I mean your goal is to be financially stable so you can do all these hiking things, because that way you can plan out on your own terms when I want to do it versus like, oh, when do I have time because of my job.
Mm-hmm.
It's the mental focus is completely different when you have like that mindset where it's like, oh, well, so I'm working for myself, I have to do, I don't know, whatever, I have to ship out like this many orders, but I know that I can do that at night. So in the morning I can go fishing, or in the morning I can do a small trail. Or
Mm-hmm.
or on this day, I'll just work in the morning, and then that way I can do something outdoors in the night, or go camping at nighttime or something. Like it's
Yeah.
definitely you free your like your mind, and it's just one less stressor that you have in the world when your schedule is revolves around you versus so many external factors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely agree with you in that sense that we need to be more focused as to why are we doing things, not just kind of like
Yeah.
go with the flow in some situations. Like in terms of like the outdoors, I love going with the flow because whatever comes my way, like on a hiking, hey, let's. I'm kind of interested to see what comes my way. Like I don't know if you ever saw that one video where was it, I think in Utah, some dude was hiking or was going on a trail, and then a mountain lion came out and like was
I
just
did.
stalking him for like six
Oh
minutes.
yeah, trust me, I saw that. Like I think like 10 of my friends sent it to me. Be careful out there. I'm like, I'm in Vermont. It's okay.
Yeah,
But
like
yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff is like, okay, well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that dude was scared at the moment, but like, he has a very fun story to talk about now, like,
yeah,
because he survived. So,
yeah.
and
And you
I'm
just
not
like you
saying,
said, you never know what you're gonna see. You never know what's gonna happen. It's anybody's game. Like it's
mhm,
just crazy. That's why I do love the woods, whether it's nature that you see or like just the funny things that happen, you know, because you're walking in the woods, you're gonna trip, you're gonna fall, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
it's whatever. And it's also, I think it's kind of humbling, you know what I mean? Because you are gonna trip and you are gonna fall, and people are gonna see you, and you're gonna look
Yeah.
silly, and you're gonna be sweaty and gross, you know. Like I said, when it comes to hiking, I really like all the aspects of it, all the
Yeah.
things that go into it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where like if you're not out there, you're not really gonna know. Like you can be tweeting about like how how like what is it connected to nature you are, how much you love nature. But if you're doing that from a city and you never go outside to like the woods, like you're really not gonna see it like firsthand. Like I mean,
When
and
you're
again, it's
missing out, you know,
yeah,
you're
you're
so
missing out for
so
sure.
missing out.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, it's not even like I'm not necessarily like knocking on anybody like if they want to like do that. I mean, totally however you want to live your life, totally up to you, right? But
Yeah,
it's just like if you're gonna be tweeting about nature, go outside, because a lot of times, and I talked about this with the previous guest, where it's like a lot of people like they get into that mentality where it's like, oh, I see it on TV, I see it on this, and it's like I already know what it's like. But then when they get out there, they realize it's not like that. So like you said, it's a humbling experience, and then most importantly, like once you're out there, you can really like see like, okay, I need to respect it, and maybe I wasn't respecting it beforehand by like not doing it justice or anything, and yeah, because that's the most important thing. Like you're out there, you respect it. Like even sometimes when I fish, like I'll have if I have a trash bag when I don't forget, like I'll just pick up trash like along the side of the bank or wherever.
totally.
I had a funny story where I went to some grasslands out here in Texas, and I was fishing and I wanted to get to the other side of the pond because there was not a whole lot of bank access in where I was fishing from, even though there was still good fishing, but I wanted to go to the other side. So I went through the woods, and then all of a sudden, like probably like halfway towards the other side, I start hearing like this, like boars just like kind of like growing, like, yeah, like I just heard the boars. I'm like, crap. And then all of a sudden I see like the tracks just running fast. And then I was able to kind of like trace the sound to my left side. So I knew they were coming from my left side. So I just started running. I climbed up a tree, and then sure enough, like they were just
That's
kind of like staring
crazy.
at me. And I was like, holy, it was just like, oh my God, like this
Yeah,
is my first experience. And I mean, my heart rate was like ridiculously
yeah,
high.
yeah. I
And
bet that's scary. That's
I
pretty
never
intense.
knew, yeah. And I never knew I can climb a tree so fast, by the
Oh
way.
yeah, yeah. The things you learn, right? That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And
Yeah.
it was my first time, like, and granted in Texas, you can take a handgun and shoot them if if
Oh
you really
right.
need to
Yeah.
protect yourself, but
Sure.
but it didn't work out for me that
Yeah,
way.
yeah. And I mean, when you're in the moment, you're like, oh my God. Yeah, yeah. I can imagine. Like we saw a bear over the summer, like a live little black bear. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And he wanted nothing to do with us. He was just like, please don't bother me. You know. And he's like, he kind of like stood still, hoping like we wouldn't see him. You know what I mean? I think that's what was going on. But it was
Mhm.
crazy scary. You know. I was like, oh my God. Like, what if this thing like turns and mauls me? Which is like
Yeah.
too, it's really irrational because so apparently the bears in Vermont are really really passive, and
Mm.
they have a ton of food, so they have no reason to bother anybody or anything, you know. And they eat like berries and nuts and vegetation. They don't, I don't even think they eat meat.
Mm.
But yeah, it's just that like irrational fear that I'm gonna
Yeah.
die in the woods, you know, from
Yeah.
a wild animal. But I
Yeah.
didn't.
I thought I was
So
gonna die when I got chased by the boar, but I was just like, I found myself up a tree and was like, all right, I think I'm safe. And then it was like two big ones and then a bunch of little ones. Like I don't know why the little ones ran at me as well, but I guess they were just following their mom or and dad or whatever. But yeah, it was just like, ooh.
it's crazy though, right? Like the thoughts that go through your head, and then like your adrenaline, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And that like flight response, like, I gotta save myself, you know? It's like you've never been so human in your life, you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah,
crazy. I
yeah,
don't know.
because
And that's nature, you know? It's just the most natural thing.
yeah,
Crazy.
and the previous guest that I was telling you about, like, he told me story because he works, and he's not necessarily a ranger, but he works something similar in the
Sure.
conservation form of that. And he was telling me that there's been people that actually like, when they go their first time, out in the woods and then they see a wild animal and they try to pet it, like thinking that it's just going to be like
That's
cuddly, like I
insane.
guess from the movies, and they end up
Yeah.
getting like their arm gets ripped apart or then get chased
Yeah.
by it, and it's like,
Yeah, they get messed up.
yeah, you just
Yeah,
like this is the kind of respect. He's like, this is the kind of respect that I advocate. Like you got to respect nature. You see a wild animal, leave it alone. Like don't
absolutely.
get
Keep your
anywhere near it.
distance. Yeah,
Yeah.
we saw a porcupine this past summer during we did a sunset hike and then we like came down the mountain in the dark and we saw a live porcupine. He was on a tree. It was like the coolest thing in the world, you know, but again, we're like, okay, like keep a reasonable distance. Like he doesn't want anything to do with us and like that's his house, you know? Like give him some space. But it was
Yeah.
so cool to see like a live porcupine in a friggin' tree. Like that was crazy. But yeah, and so that's another thing with hiking is like there's so many different times. You know, you can do sunset, you can do sunrise, you can do midday, you can do evening. Like it's just crazy. And every like different time of the day, you're gonna see different animals. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because it's just crazy. You know, like hearing owls versus birds, something you wouldn't think about, but it's pretty freaking cool.
Mhm.
Same thing like you don't see chipmunks or squirrels at nighttime. You see mice. You know, I'm like, what? Who would have thought,
Yeah.
right? But like that's a thing. Again, like porcupine, you won't usually see. I don't think you should see a porcupine during the day. You know, it's a nocturnal animal. But
Mhm.
just cool things that come out at nighttime that I had no idea
Yeah,
until I was
you
out
would
there.
think, and because you see like on TV, you see them like during the day, like when like, and I mean I refer to cartoons a lot. Like you'll see a porcupine like the middle of the day. Like I just saw a TV show on Netflix where some guy was feeding porcupines and it was in the middle of the day. But then from your experience, you know that they're actually a nighttime creature
Yeah.
versus the daytime. So it's like, yeah, this is why like I advocate like trying to go out there in the safest form that you possibly can. Keep your distance. You really need to see like the animals actually how they're supposed to be living.
hmm
Yeah.
It is pretty
So
cool. Yeah.
and like so going back to the point we were on about like the whole thing about making money, right? So I do believe that everybody should at least have that as a short-term goal. But again, the journey in this type of situation, I 100% emphasize more the journey because you want to be able to have like streams of income, but not necessarily in the sense that that's going to be controlling your life. You want it to basically support you being able to go traveling, you being able to go to hike, you able to, all that stuff. Like, that's kind of like what my goal became. Like versus like, okay, well, I went to school, got a job, now I'm just working at a desk, and yeah, like every once in a while I'll travel here and there, but it's like it's pretty mundane. Like it was just gym, work, gym, work, gym, work, and it's like okay. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, sure, the gym was enough to kind of decompress me a little bit, but it's like it's nothing compared to like right now. Like all right, I can go, work, fish, gym, fish again, go on a hike this weekend, just randomly take off and go like an hour south of where I'm at or 2 hours south of where I'm at and just spend the day there. Like like
Yeah.
having that freedom, like
Yeah.
you know.
It's about having like a centered lifestyle, you know, and choosing what your center is. Like for me,
Mhm,
it's hiking, it's being outside. And like you said, I made my job work. You know what I mean? I like made my money making accommodate my like happiness, you know?
mhm,
And the other thing is like you said, like having an intention, you know, like waking up and being like, okay, I might have to work, but I'm gonna go fishing like 2 times today. You know what I mean? Like that intention, like waking up and being like I'm looking forward to today, even though I have to work, you know, that's just like a part of my day, you know, but then I get to go do like what I'm waking up to do. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And that's you know, same thing with me. Like I get done with my work by like 1:30, usually it's the latest, and then I have the entire afternoon to myself or to do whatever I want to do. And a lot of times I just, you know, go hiking, snowshoeing. During summer I love to kayak.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, living with intention, you know, and having a purpose, you know, a reason to get up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and honestly, like sometimes through that passion, you have no idea how you influence the world or how you impact the world. Like, you've basically said yourself, like, you've got the passion to hike and now you actually want to contribute by like, setting up different courses, help cleaning them up, help like conserve the
hmm
nature. Because I think, in a very heavily politicized world, I think there's a lot more common ground than people actually realize. And like me specifically, I'll be honest with you, like I'm not like gonna be like I'm not necessarily a tree hugger, but oh my god, I cannot stress the importance of just cleaning up after yourself when you go out in the woods and all that stuff. Like it's just pick up your trash. Like just pick up your trash. Like it's not that difficult. You take a case of
Oh, I
beer. It's
know.
actually more work to take the case of beer when it's full than to bring it back when it's empty,
I
and
know.
you
I
just leave
hear
it out
you.
there. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I hear you.
and it's
Totally.
like, oh my God, it's the frustration because it's like then nobody else gets to enjoy it. And then like realistically, the animals just get displaced. And you don't want that. You don't want any of
Yeah. And a lot of times they'll shut it down. There's
that.
been like certain areas around us that were privately owned, and they would allow the public to go and hike or, go hang out by the river or whatever. But people kept trashing it up, and so they shut it down. And I don't blame them. Like, I wouldn't want people
Hmm.
grubbing up my personal property. Like it was nice enough that they were letting us use their property, you know? And
Yeah.
honestly, like when it comes to like leaving stuff behind, that just like blows my mind. It's just I can't even like believe people do that, especially like if you're like in the woods, it just seems crazy to even like have trash with you in the woods. I don't know. I'm also the kind of person that like we um we like to reuse instead of recycle. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So like our sandwich bags are like this weird plasticky stuff that you just wash. You know what I mean? And
The silicone
we don't
stuff, right?
yeah, yeah. And we don't use like Tupperware plastic. We use like the Pyrex, the glass dishes and stuff like that. Even on a hike, like I'll just wrap it up in like we have cloth napkins that we use. We don't use paper towels, you know what I mean? But I'll wrap it up in that just to keep it safe so it doesn't get broken on the trail or something like that. We always use reusable water bottles, stuff like that. That's something to think about too when you're on the trail is like the trash that
Hmm.
you're going to bring with you. A lot of people use those little nut butter packets, and that's cool and everything. Just make sure you're not losing it as you like try to walk down the mountain, and I like I see those all the time, or like empty plastic bottles, and I'm like, that's crazy. Like this
Yeah.
bottle of water this big, that's not going to be enough water, so you bring like 10 of them with you. That's outrageous.
Yeah.
Like, and then you see the stuff on the trail, and it's like, oh man, it like puts me
Yeah.
on fire.
Yeah, and I've been on
um
trails here where there's like little campsites and stuff, or little like places where you can just start a fire, and that's where you see beer cans, soda cans, things like that. And it's like,
yeah,
and it's like, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like the middle ground there is like, dude, trash. Just like everybody just pick up after themselves. Like everybody can agree that, because I mean, how can we recommend somebody to go out in nature so you can see nature firsthand if you're kind of messing with it, by
yeah.
leaving all this trash, because now the animals have to adapt by either like messing around the trash or moving further in, and then you're never going to see how they're supposed to be living. So how can you
Yeah,
respect?
and
How
we're
can you even take it
already
in?
encroaching on their homes, just by being there, let alone by leaving our trash behind. Like that's just
Yeah.
crazy. Like I said, crazy. And if I like ever see somebody littering on a trail, like, oh man. In fact, we saw a four-wheeler on a trail, and I just about lost my mind, and my husband was like, Beth, you need to calm down. Like you need to calm down. And I was like, no, and then next thing you know, I'm like almost like verbally attacking this guy because I'm like, you can't be up here, and then he's like trying to give me these excuses, and I'm like, that's outrageous. Like if
Mm,
everybody, you know what I mean? And oh God, like I said, it just makes me on fire like crazy. You gotta respect the outdoors, Like without the outdoors, like we just literally have nothing. We have
yeah.
nothing without the outdoors.
Yeah, because I mean, people don't really, I think, understand the connection to us and the outdoors. Because I mean, and again, I don't necessarily fault them for that, because it's just how we progress through, I guess, if you want to call it civilization. Um, it's
Yeah.
like how, yeah, exactly. I made that same
Yeah.
face too when I hear that way.
It's a lack of education though. They don't even know.
Yes,
They have no
yes,
idea. And like without
yeah,
trees, like we don't have oxygen, Like without vegetables, like we aren't healthy.
mm,
It's just crazy. People don't
yeah,
think about
and
that.
yeah, and it's like, again, when you look at like the changes in climate, like the perfect example right now is Las Vegas, because Las Vegas, how it's gained, a lot of people are moving over there. So a lot of people that have the money, they want the lawns, right? So that means that they have to import water to basically water the lawns, which, I
Man,
guess,
that's crazy, huh?
yeah, like if you have the money, fine, go for it. But
That's
like in
crazy.
Arizona, yeah, no, in Arizona, like you can tell which places have the most amount of water access because they have the lawns. But most of the
Yeah.
time, nobody really has lawns in Arizona, uh, for a
Yeah.
reason, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, so if you look at Las Vegas didn't have much rain because, again, desert, at least that whole area. But now, because people are importing water, they're setting up their lawns. Uh, all that precipitation that goes into the grass gets absorbed in the clouds, and now it's raining. Like it's raining a little bit more
Wow.
frequent than before. You
That's
know,
insane.
yeah. So we do contribute to the environment. We do contribute to the climate, and I mean, because we prevented dust bowls. Like, dust bowls
Yeah,
were a thing in the past, and we don't have them anymore, right?
totally.
So,
Yeah.
there's definitely proof of that. But it really, realistically, it's just like we need, like, the education needs to be there. I think at one point, I don't remember. I remember reading something about this like a while back. It's been a while. I have to look it up. But so we used to make up, I think, only like 4%, 10% of the biosphere. Like, and that was when we had like less amount of humans. Now we're actually 90, like it's close to 90% or even 98% of the biosphere. So it's like, so when you grow up in that, in that point in time where you're like, we're 90% of the biosphere, that means that there has to be a lot more like concrete built, for people to like have homes and stuff like that. So you think that's the normal, right?
Yeah.
When it really, it's not so much the normal, it's just where we're at today. Like, so
Yeah.
we need that education to help us connect back to the outdoors
Totally.
and nature too. So,
Yeah.
and,
Totally.
and yeah, and it's common ground. I think I personally think that like it's common ground, and because like you said, it's the cheapest form of help. Like, it's cheaper than medication, and it's a lot
Mhm.
safer. So
Mhm. I
if we
agree.
don't,
A lot safer.
yeah, and if we restrict the amount of access to it, then it's like, it doesn't really help us at all.
Mm-mm. No, I
So
hear you.
yeah. So okay. Well, we're 4 minutes before the hour mark. Any last thoughts, recommendations, remarks?
I mean,
No.
I guess the only recommendation is to get out there and go hiking. You know what I mean? And be happy and be healthy. Find out what you're looking for and
Mm,
go for it. You know, if it
yeah.
makes you happy, then I think that that's what you should do. And I think that so far, um, everything's worked out. You know what I mean? Like I'm not starving in the streets, and I have like a roof over my head and a full stomach. So
Mm,
if you do what I think you want to do and you pursue your dreams, and everything else just kind of falls in place. I mean, there's been so many situations where that happens. It's like I can't even like tell you. There's just so many situations where I have followed what I wanted to do, which is hiking and being outside and exploring, and I've made new contacts, I've gotten new clients, you know what I mean? I've joined new groups, I've made new friends. Like it's just working out. You just have to have faith that if you do what you're passionate about, that life's going to work out.
yeah. To piggyback on that, because I was kind of thinking the same thing. Yeah. Like, I think the most important thing too is like try not to let anybody else dictate your happiness or tell you what happiness is,
Yeah.
because it's very relative. Like, I mean, there's people that I've seen that are super happy working at a retail job, and you have other people thinking, well, you're a loser if you work at a retail job, but you don't know what they're doing on their free time. And they actually probably have more free time than the person that's working a 9 to 5 job.
And if
Like,
they're happier, then who cares what that guy thinks? You know?
yeah,
If you're happy, if you're happy, that's the point of life, right?
exactly. And it's like, and that's the thing, like, that I want to stress out to people, like, make sure that, to the people who are still watching and listening, don't let anybody dictate your happiness. Like, obviously, as long as you don't hurt anybody or steal from anybody, because if you're happy
Right.
stealing, that's,
Yeah.
that's a
That's
different
shitty.
thing. But yeah, but like for the most part, just, like, do like, well, yeah, obviously don't let anybody dictate your happiness. And then also like try your best to just kind of like be prepared for like situations like, things that might not come up, like lost a job. Try your best to get as prepared as you can. I know sometimes the resources aren't available, but
Mm.
and yeah, case in point, like, just if you're better adapted to moving around in different environments and thriving in different environments, your mental health won't decline as much. And then also another thing too, patience. Like, we were talking about, like, how does somebody that normally doesn't meditate, get into the outdoors and actually enjoys it from a meditation standpoint? Like,
Yeah.
there needs to be patience. Like, things don't happen. Sometimes they happen in a day, in a few hours. Sometimes it takes a week. And the important
Totally.
thing, we need a little bit more patience, and we need definitely have more faith in ourselves and what we cultivate, what we try to, like, seek, plant, and and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And yeah.
I totally agree. 100%.
All right. So Bethy, so where can they find you? Do you only have the Instagram page, or do you have a YouTube
Um,
channel?
so I have Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, and it's all Bethy the VT hiker.
Mhm.
The
All
YouTube is just videos of my hikes pretty much, and
mm,
then Facebook is pretty much what I put on Instagram.
Okay. So your YouTube is more just kind of like your vlogs to a certain degree.
Yeah, pretty
And
much. Yeah.
I think that's probably the best way to kind of really understand what it's like to go on a hike. If you want to, check that out. Like, I highly encourage it, and check out definitely the Instagram page. I'm not on Facebook, but the Instagram page, that's kind of how I found you. And definitely you do have some very, very scenic stuff that you're posting. So just looking at that is, brings definitely some, I mean, it's going to sound cheesy, but definitely brings joy to the people that are like scrolling through your feed and
Glad
everything.
to do it. Yeah, that's why I do it, man. Feels good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, that about wraps this up. And yeah, thanks again for lending me your time. And yeah, so I hope we can do this again sometime in the future. So you're definitely
Definitely.
welcome to come back on the podcast. More than happy to have you.
Cool. Thanks so much. It's been nice to be on.
All right. Very nice. And hope you have a wonderful day, and hope the listeners have a wonderful day as well.
All right. Thanks, man. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.